What's up, everybody? Man, I have been busy as all can be, trying to get some videos uploaded, stuff that's been on my computer that's been on there forever. And some of that I have lost footage, as you've seen in a video I just posted of putting the 426 in this car. And also the video before that, and probably the video before that. I am terrible when it comes to like recording stuff and keeping track of the SD cards. I like just poof, they'll just disappear. So I eventually will find them. Like I have footage on Lemonator, the Duster I drove from Tennessee to Vegas. I had so much more footage on that, but one of the SD cards just like vanished inside the car. So maybe when I'm putting new carpet in, I'll find it. But the reason I'm making this video right here is I had gotten a lot of questions about this car. Actually, not really the car. Everybody knows the car. It's the generally. I've done a couple of videos on this car, and the yeah, I've probably done a few more recent videos of this car because this is the one I've been working on. Some people are like, why don't you be more, oh, what do they say? Why don't you be more diverse? Why don't you do different cars? It's like, well, it's whatever I'm doing at the moment. And at the moment, I was working on this car. Then I may work on this car. Then I may go racing. Then I may go work on the Duster. It's whatever I'm doing. I don't have some production team to tell me what we're going to be working on next. So it's just whatever I'm doing at the moment. But as for the engine that's in the general, I had gotten a lot of questions on what was done to it. And I didn't do that in the description because, or I didn't do that in the video because if I had tried to make a detailed list of what was done to the engine, it would have just been like a page long. And so I was like, I'll just leave that out of it. And then I got in so many questions about it, I'm like, oh crap, I'll just do a little video about the motor. So yes, this is in fact the 426 wedge that I had pulled, or that me and Mike had pulled out of that black 68 Charger, that rot box. Actually, we didn't really, actually, yeah, technically we pulled it out because we really only had to pull 2 bolts to get that engine out. The 2 motor mount bolts, and the rest of the car just kind of came with the engine. But the only thing I actually reused from that engine was the block, the crank, the rods, and the pistons. So basically the short block. Now, it's not really, in fact, a 426. It's actually a 413 that's been bored out to 426 pistons. So it has 426 pistons in it, but it's not truly a 426 wedge. Actually, if you look at the top of the block, okay, yeah, you'll see a 4-1. Well, the 3 just didn't have enough room to stamp on it, but it's a 413. It is an HP 413, which doesn't make a difference, but it is a 413. And knowing what I know now, I would have never used a 426. Yeah, just with the smaller bore, and it's better just to use a 440. I wouldn't have used the 426. The only reason I used the 426 is just for the novelty of saying, when somebody pulls up next to me or asks me a question, you know, does that got the 426 in it? Yep, it does. Now, it don't have the 426 Hemi, but they didn't ask if it had a Hemi. They just asked if it had a 426. So, sounds cooler. Okay, what I had done is, I completely stripped the engine apart. And then had the crank polished, had the block, not bored, just honed, because actually, the engine was really clean inside. It was super clean. It didn't have hardly any miles on it when we tore it apart. But I just wanted to re-hone it. I got new Molly rings for it. I got better bearings for it. The pistons I had separated from the rods, or pressed off, and I had the tops of the pistons ceramic coated. The reason I did that, it was to help with oil temps. Because the cooler I can keep the oil, the better the oil pressure will be. And also, the cooler the engine will run too. So I had the tops of the pistons ceramic coated. Then I ordered Elbrock E Street heads, and I hogged those out. I sent the heads off to my buddy who did the machine work on the valves, and because he did the back cut and the 3-angle valve job and all that. Because when you buy them from Elbrock, the E Streets, they suck. They're just like basically stock aluminum heads, but at least they don't have the heat crossover for the intake. But so we hogged the heads out, and then he did the valve job on them, and then I had the heads ceramic coated. The reason I had them ceramic coated was to help with cooling. So if you ceramic coat the combustion chambers, then the combustible heat or the combustion doesn't transfer the heat to the cylinders as bad. So I ceramic coated the combustion chambers, the exhaust runners, and the valves. So the car will run better in the summertime, and also technically you make that slightly bit more performance. It's like a theory, because if you can keep the expanding gas from well, the cylinder heads will absorb some of the heat from the expanding gas, which will cool that combustion. So if you can ceramic coat the pistons and the combustion chamber, that'll keep that expanding gas from cooling and get a bigger. So that was the theory behind that. And I put a comp roller cam in it. It's a used cam I had bought off a guy from one of the forums. It's a comp hydraulic roller. I can't remember the exact specs on it, but I do remember it's a 112 lobe separation, and it's like a 236, 242 duration. And it being a 112 lobe separation, I don't really like it because it's almost like a turbo car. Doesn't have a lot of bottom end, but once it gets up on the cam, it moves. So one thing I really want to do to this engine is I'd like to pull the timing cover off, and I'd like to advance the cam like 4 degrees on this thing. Because it's already, when I put the cam in, I advanced it 2. I need to go like another 4 just to bring that power band down, because I have the rev limiter on this thing set at 6,300 just because it's cast pistons, cast rods. And so trying to keep it from windowing the block. So yeah, it has, so the rev limiter's down low, and the power band on this engine, I mean, this thing just pulls like hell, and then it hits the rev limiter because it's still pulling. So you can't really feel when to shift because it's pulling, then rev limiter. So I need to drop the power band on this thing. I want to get more bottom end and make more use of the RPM window I'm trying to work in. Okay, then I put that Mopar wedge intake on it, and I ceramic coated the intake. We got Harlem Sharp roller rockers on it. It's got the Hemi oil pan. It has a 2500 stall converter, and it has 293 gears in it. So being at that cam, if this thing had like a 3000 or 3500 stall converter in it with like 391 gears, it'd probably be really good. But I'm trying to keep these cars just where they're more street friendly, just so I can actually daily drive them, and I do daily drive them. Smurf and the General are my legit daily drivers right now. The truck behind me, it don't run. So these, I mean, okay, I put this engine in July. This engine has 13,000 miles on it since July of 2020. So in, what is that, 4 months? I put 4.5 to 5 months, I've put 13,000 miles on this car alone. I drive this car and Smurf as my dailies. So this 426 wedge has really proven itself. I had a plug take a crap on me, and it absorbed all kinds of combustion. The spark plug took a crap, and it started not burning on that cylinder, or it started misfiring on that cylinder. And so what I thought was a valve stem seal while I was at Jed's place was really just a plug that had been misfiring under a heavy load, or more under a load for a long period of time, and then it finally took a crap. Well, there was so much crap piled on top of the piston that it just took a while for it to all burn off. So after a couple spark plugs, the cylinder completely cleaned itself out, and it's all good. This engine makes roughly, I would say, well, I know for a fact that the engine in Smurf makes when I got this car, it made 506 at the crank. It was dynoed at 506. Since then, I put a different intake on it, and I put bigger roller rockers on it, and this car makes more power than it did when I first got it. So I would say it's, I don't know, low 5s, maybe 520. The General will outrun Smurf. So I would say, in order to feel that, and they both have the same gears. They both have 293 gears, and they both have roughly the same stall converter, and they're both roughly the same weight. So I would say this engine probably makes around 550 is what I would assume. And that's just by the seat of my pants. Now, other things I have done to this car to make it more driver friendly is we have a massive tranny cooler on it, and I have a massive oil cooler on it. And I tell you what, that oil cooler makes a big difference, because when it has an electric fan, and when the electric fan is on or off, you can actually see the oil pressure drop difference between the oil heating up and then it being cooled down. So like say if I'm on the highway and the fan is off, I will see 5 psi drop in oil pressure, just because the oil gets hotter, because it's not pulling as much air through the cooler. Now when the fan turns on, it instantly gains that 5 oil pressure back, because it cools the oil system back down. And that's just with the fan. Now if you have no oil cooler, the oil pressure from cold start to full running is drastically lower. Like Smurf does not have an oil cooler on it, and I'm going to be putting one on it just because everything I've learned with the General. This car here, it will get lifter clatter after it runs for a while, and that's with 2050. I mean, that's just the oil heating up and thinning out. This engine never does, because the oil is more consistent in viscosity because of the oil cooler. This thing never clatters the lifters, which to me is better at high RPM, because then you're getting more of the actual valve lift. Let's see, what else have we done? We got my polished MT valve covers, which these are the valve covers that were on the engine when I got it. Now one thing I am going to do is, this fan that's on this thing is a Mercedes electric fan, and it is ginormous. That thing pulls so much amperage. It has got 8 gauge wire going to I mean, look at, that's the wire going to the fan. That's my thumb, and that's the wire. That thing pulls so much amperage that the V-belt cannot hold the load from the alternator. So it just keeps killing belts. I mean, I have to put a belt on this thing, every couple thousand miles. It just kills the belts, and that's under a lot of tension. So I got a new fan that doesn't pull as much air, but I really don't need this much airflow anyway. I mean, it's just, there's no, with this car in neutral, that fan turned on, it'll darn near pull the car forward. So I got a smaller fan for it. Doesn't pull as much CFM, doesn't pull as much amperage, but it's still plenty cool enough. And I'm going to get rid of this radiator, because this is just an old Circle Track single pass radiator. I'm going to be putting a triple pass Circle Track radiator in it, just because I have it. So I'm going to weld some brackets to it and use it. This is not a show car. This is not some OE restoration. This is my toy. I mean, it's a daily driver toy. I beat the piss out of this thing. It's not meant to be a show car, or it's just a driver. And so I am going to be putting new interior in it, because the interior on this thing is roached. The seats are junk. The door panels are all messed up, both sides. Carpet's junk. Headliner's getting bad. And people always give me crap because I don't get in and out of the windows that much anymore, because it has ruined the driver's seat upholstery. Like, crawling in and out of the window just destroys the seat upholstery. When I first got this car, I did that all the time, every day. Now, not so much. So that is where I'm at on the General. So we talked about the engine, told you what it was, things I'm going to be doing to it. Oh, she sees the glare from the screen on the ground. So she's like a hawk, man, when it comes to a laser. Oh, I can't do it with the screen, but anyways, yeah, when she sees either a laser or a light glare on the ground, she's on it. But yeah, no, that's with this car. And you'll see a video that's coming out in a couple days, or maybe later today, I don't know. It depends on how much time I have. But it has General has a trailer hitch on it, so I made the trailer hitch for it, and it's a really heavy duty one that I modified to make it work for the car. And I towed this thing everywhere. I mean, I towed the race car with it. I just went to Georgia and back with the General Lee. I went to North Dakota and back with the General Lee, California, Utah. This thing goes everywhere. This is my tow vehicle. I just put new leaf springs on it, because the leaf springs that were on it were junk. Anyways, sorry for blabbing so much. I just wanted to get caught. I gotta stop moving around so much for you guys. But I just wanted to answer a few questions and let people know what the General actually is. Oh, it has a 750 HP double pumper carburetor on it. And let me talk to you a little bit about the carburetor too. The reason I can drive this thing all the time, everywhere. Oh, pulling a trailer. So I just came back from Georgia with my police car on the trailer. This car got 10 miles a gallon. Doesn't sound like a lot, right? But think about this. No overdrive, no lockup torque converter, 426 cubic inch engine making 550 horsepower, and it got 10 miles a gallon. That's really not that bad at all. And the reason it was able to do that is because I spent a ton of time tuning this carburetor. And I'm not talking just wide open throttle, throwing jets at it, and air fuel ratio is good to go. No, I spent a ton of time drivability tuning. And what I mean by drivability is there's air bleeds on top of the carburetor, and then there's idle jet restrictors also inside the metering block, along with the main jets. In order for the car to be real drivable, you have to do a lot of tuning with the idle jet restrictors and the air bleeds, because that's what does all your tuning for daily driving and for cruising speeds on the highway, not the main jets. Main jets don't do crap at highway speeds. Now, well, it depends on the gear, I guess you have. If you have a real short gear, then you have to use more throttle to do the same speed, so yeah. But for your typical carbureted car that has 323 gears, or if you got an overdrive, most of your tuning is all going to be done with the air bleeds and the idle jet restrictors. And you need an air fuel gauge to get that tuned. So, and you have to drive it. Not on the dyno, you have to drive it. So you drive it around normal driving conditions, and we're all talking just cruising stuff. And if I pulled the spark plug out of this car right now, it would look like I just put it in there. And that's with, about 8,000 miles on it with a carburetor. So tuning with carburetors is a big thing, especially drivability. You can't just pull it out of the box, change the main jets, and go, shit's tits. No, doesn't work. So air bleeds, idle jet restrictors, the main jets, the power valves, it's a whole big thing you got to do to tune it. And so right now this carburetor is tuned perfect to this engine. My idle is 13.2 in neutral. In gear, 13.7. On the highway cruising, or if I'm just cruising down the street or on the highway, if I'm just cruising down the street, I have about 13.6. On the highway, it's about 12.9, 13.0, and the reason for that is I can't get it any better. I cannot get it any better without sacrificing idle quality, because this engine has such low vacuum at idle that I have to have a big enough idle jet restrictor in order to even keep the fuel, in order to keep the thing idling. Now, when this thing gets up around 25 to 3,000 RPM highway cruising speed, the vacuum is much higher. I mean, it's doubled in vacuum. So that pulls a better signal on the carburetor, which then it runs a little richer. So it's hard to tune this engine because of the cam that's in it. It has crappy vacuum idle, but then it has great cruising vacuum. So that's where that comes in. So there's a happy median I had to do. And then wide open throttle, it's 12.8. So this thing runs great. Anyways, I've blabbed enough. I gotta get to work. So I'll see you guys later. Sam, are you still looking for that laser? Dork.